Why is that dog pink? It's actually not quite as preposterous as you might think. It is possible for dogs to have pink fur if they naturally have a white or light colored coat. You see, dog saliva, tears, and other excrements contain compounds called porphyrins that can stain their fur into a pinkish or reddish color when they are sufficiently oxygenated. It is plausible for Courage here to turn himself pink, assuming he has been licking himself a lot, or has been, let's say, constantly dousing himself in tears of fear. Alternatively, pink fur color could also be a sign that he has a yeast infection. Yeah. You should get that checked out. Welcome to another entry from the Omni-Bestiary. If you haven't guessed already, today's episode takes us to Nowhere, Kansas, the self-proclaimed weirdest and creepiest place in the entire world. A title that's rather difficult to dispute, since one would be hard-pressed to stroll through here and not encounter a bizarre beast, eldritch horror, or sinister waterfowl. Today, we shall take a look at one particular example of this land's frightening fauna, the bane of homesteaders and gardeners everywhere, the Weremole. Although I cannot determine whether the weremole is its own separate species, or a common mole possessive of malicious ferocity, it is very clear that the weremole has a drastically different anatomy from other moles, with its extended limbs, bipedal posture, blood-red eyes, and, of course, massive torso-encompassing mouth, lined with jagged rows of teeth. It has also demonstrated a surprising degree of intelligence, as it comprehended the rules of games like dodgeball, to an extent. Whilst other moles tend to feast on worms and underground insects, the weremole has a preference for much larger prey, hares, and humans. As an ambush predator, it surprises its targets by burrowing toward them at a frenzied pace, then it leaps out to clamp down on them with its jaws, and thrashes them about till their insides have been liquefied into paste. While this would make one wary against building a backyard garden in the middle of weremole territory, it is fortunately only active at a specific time, during the night of a full moon. It can be presumed that the weremole enters a hibernated state to conserve energy in between feeding periods, though that would make it even more imperative for it to find food when it is time to hunt. We can also hypothesize that this creature attacks rabbits in their burrows, since they are not typically known to roam around at night. If you're concerned that the weremole might have difficulty digging around down there, fret not, for moles have several adaptations for their underground life. First, they have hairs and whiskers on their paws and nose that can allow them to detect environmental vibrations and stimuli. In fact, certain mole species, like the aptly named star-nosed mole, also have these bizarre-looking protrusions that serves a similar function. In addition, it was found that some moles can breathe in their oxygen-starved tunnels thanks to their hemoglobin, a protein structure in the blood that transports oxygen and carbon dioxide throughout their body. Compared to animals that spend more of their time above ground, the hemoglobin of these moles allow their bodies to sustain higher levels of carbon dioxide, and thus can spend a longer time under the surface. Lastly, the short limbs and posture of the moles, along with their large shovel-like paws, are well suited for quick digging, even though the weremole lacks these tools, despite digging at speeds that appear to exceed the 4.6 to 5.4 meter per hour rate other moles can reach. The only way I can possibly explain this is that the sheer fury of the weremole is just absolutely horrendous. If you, somehow, manage to survive a weremole attack, I would strongly advise acquiring the aid of a medical professional and an animal tracker ASAP. This is because you will be afflicted with a rather virulent infection when you're bit by one of them. One that'll make you, quote-unquote, become one yourself. Certain zoonotic diseases, or afflictions that are spread from animal to human, can alter one's behavior. The most prominent example being, without doubt, the rabies virus. Rabies is transferred between creatures, typically within warm-blooded carnivorous ones, when the affected animal's saliva or fluids somehow enter the new host, usually when they get mauled. Once inside, the virus will impair the victim's neurological processes, which will result in them exhibiting incoherent or violent muscle spasms, delusions, and behaviors. One can even say that one becomes feral when suffering under the effects of rabies, which, coincidentally, is also what is believed by certain circles to be one of the inspirations for lycanthropy, or turning into a werewolf. As such, the illness caused by a bite of a weremole, which I'm henceforth dubbing aspalanthropy, can draw similar comparisons to the symptoms of rabies. One under the effects of aspalanthropy will lose all human-level cognitive thinking, devolving into a creature driven only by a primal desire for food and bloodlust. There will also be pronounced physical changes in skin and hair color, as well as spontaneous hair growth in atypical locations. The virus can even cause alterations in skeletal structures, as one's teeth will become just as ragged as that of the weremoles. Although carriers of the rabies virus will ultimately die from brain inflammation without immediate medical treatment after the initial bite, there does not appear to be any evidence to indicate that aspalanthropy is fatal. In addition, no matter what stage of the disease they may be in, the aspalanthrope can fortunately be instantly cured by feeding them a hair from the initial carrier of the virus. Which is, perhaps, the only possible context where it's acceptable to have hair in your food. Thus, we conclude today's entry. I hope you found the information I offered useful to you. Feel free to like and subscribe so I may keep track of future episodes. I might just do one on a creature that may be of interest to you. But until then, stay safe, and Oh, you fuzzy You thought I didn't see this coming?!